Welcome to the LA Sober Sessions podcast, everyone. Before we get in it, look to support us at We Are LA Sober on all the social handles, and also we have a podcast that we're here filming on YouTube, and then you can also buy merch from us and support us at lasober.com. This is one of the hats here. Make Los Angeles sober again. It's not MAGA, but funny. And then I'm gonna give, when we're done with this, I'm gonna give my guest some merch as well. So we'll show you that. Larry Miller.
Yes, it is me.
Thank you for coming on the podcast. So everyone,
Thanks for having me.
Larry is my brother-in-law. I lucked out. I am one of the lucky ones.
Yeah. We both lucked out, Billy.
We did. So Larry, you have a very interesting story, my friend. You do.
Yeah. I think everyone's story is interesting to them, but the fact that my story is interesting to you, that's, I'm used to my story, so it's hard to know how interesting it is, but...
So Larry, can we start with where you grew up and a little bit about your childhood? And
yeah, so I grew up in Studio City, North Hollywood here in Los Angeles, born in '68. So
you old?
I'm telling you. But so my childhood was a '70s childhood. High school was 80s, graduated in 86, went to UC Santa Barbara, so college through 91. And my professional career started in the early 90s, like birth of the internet, multimedia, that sort of thing. So, I've been in LA my whole life, other than, going up to school in Santa Barbara, which is just, culturally very similar.
Yeah. So. I think one thing that we have in common, which I think is, I think it shows a lot about someone's overall character, is you have friends that were your friends back in grade school and high school, and they're still your best friend, and you guys still, for your 50th birthday, we were up in Paso, and that whole crew was there, and it really shows me, that it's real, but those stories that come out of that are just all time.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thank God for my friends. I mean, none. Basically, I just had dinner with them 2 nights ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, my best friends from second grade are still my best friends, and part of it is I just happen to navigate to they're still, having met thousands of people one meets in their life, as an adult, they're still the best people I know. So I think that we all got very lucky to have found each other. We're all different, but we all, work well with each other. And we, some came, I was a child of divorce. Most all my friends were also. And frankly, there was some insanity in my childhood, and I was able to navigate that through my friendships, even when I couldn't necessarily navigate or use my parents or my family as a guide. I used them as guides, sort of. So they, when you've been friends with somebody, I'm 57 now, 50 years, some of these people,
Jesus.
It's they're not even friends.
They're family.
It's family.
Yeah.
It's they're woven into the fabric of who I am. I can't pull a thread in my fabric and not, contact the threads of them in me,
Well, they know you, they accept you, they have stories of they can
right.
They can hang you out to dry if they wanted to, but it's it's good.
Well, and we've messed with each other so much, they can address me in ways that nobody else can, because they just I know their intentions, they know my intentions. We raised each other in a lot of ways, and this growing up in the 70s, early 80s. Like, it's not like today with helicopter parents. You know,
Yeah.
I'm a parent. I witness all these helicopter parents, and we were like, we were free range kids. Even in LA, just like a lot of people in smaller towns didn't have a lot of supervision. Come home for dinner. It was the same with us, except it was LA, so we got into just a lot more sort of edgy trouble.
Yeah. So you're married and you have an older daughter, Malaya.
Yep.
And Malaya's at school at Pearson's, and she'll be graduating.
Parsons in New York Design School. Yep. And then remarried. My son is Jordan.
Yep. Very cool. I love Baby J.
Yeah.
God, I was just thinking about it. Remember your bachelor party?
I remember my bachelor party well. Which one? Oh, the second one. So
Yeah.
I'm second marriage. So
Yeah.
So my first bachelor party was.
I wasn't gonna bring that
thing.
one up.
That was a whole other level.
Yeah.
I think basically, second bachelor party, which I debated even having one, but for the sake of my friends, they were like, "Come on!" We ended up just in Palm Springs, where you grew up, and I think we just smoked a lot of pot, a lot of pot, and hung out in the pool, and we just threw. I think I have a couple lasting memories. Is one, we were playing like a form of dodgeball, but the person who was having the ball thrown at them had to just stay still, and it was just teeing off and throwing the ball as hard as you could. I don't know, when you were watching that, were you like, what the?
No, because we got there like late.
Yeah.
And it was hotter than balls.
Yeah.
And we walked in there, and everyone was so cooked.
We
and
were
just
so tired.
Just baked.
Being in the heat and like late stage being stoned.
Yeah.
It was, we didn't have a lot of energy.
How many years ago was that?
Well, let's see. I've been married so that had to be almost 15 years ago.
Oh my God, time goes by so.
Yeah. And the other thing I remember is my friend Rob. I don't remember, I think I gave him permission. His fists are like hams. He's a big guy, big fists, and he's punched me so many times, but he wanted to punch me once, and I let him punch me in the leg.
And it's dead.
Oh my God! It like the vibration of it. I thought he broke my femur. Is what I thought. So those are my two memories. The rest is just it's a blur.
But it's like people change, but we don't change, right? Like we change. Like I've changed a lot for the better, but I'm still the same kid I was.
Well, it's like layers.
Yeah.
It's like underneath all the layers that.
It's
still you, and then you get around your friends, and that those layers of experience and lessons learned and all that kind of stuff, it peels away, and they contact, especially you've been friends since childhood, the child in you, and all those all those memories and ways of relating. Yeah, totally.
So let's go back to your parents were divorced, and there was some dynamics there that were a bit crazy at times.
Yeah, my mom and dad, they divorced when I was about 3. My brother's about 1, and my mom, when they got married, I think my mom was like 17.
Yeah, young.
And this is like I think in a previous generation that was kind of normal. And maybe it was just at the tail end of that being normal for that generation. But I think women's liberation, as women entered the workforce, they started pushing that all back to, do things professionally. It's advanced to the point that women are. It's why IVF is so popular, because those childbearing years, my mom and my dad. My dad was older, so my dad was from Detroit. My dad was, he was in a lot of ways self-raised. His father, who was like an immigrant from Russia, I guess a lot of them settled in Detroit. His father was old when my dad was born. I think he was 40 when my dad was born, and this was like 40 now is like young.
Yeah.
but back then 40 was your lifespan. You're going to die in your, in your early 60s kind of thing. And so, his dad didn't have the energy to raise my dad. My dad we would recognize him now as ADHD. They didn't have that diagnosis then. He was an undiagnosed bipolar, but nobody knew. He was just somebody that my grandpa, I guess, couldn't handle. His mother died when he was about 13. And he always said that she died of cancer. A good friend of his told me that his mom died, that he understood it to be suicide. And what's crazy is my mom's mom committed suicide when she was 13 also. So this is the context. My dad was about 10 years older than my mom. And they grew up here. My mom grew up here and gave birth. She was pregnant with me at 19, gave birth to me at 20. And they lived kind of a very like Hollywood partying lifestyle, fashionable, saw the Doors at the Whiskey, like very fast paced, drugs, partying, not crazy. They were, enough to be able to have a family, but with, all of that going on, plus my dad's bipolar was I think coming out, and they couldn't stay together. My dad he was kind of a brutal guy. Like if you ask my mom, she didn't want, like, whatever affection I have for my dad, she just can't deal with it. So,
I met your dad once at Thanksgiving one.
Yeah.
I think it was
and he was neutered by then. I mean, he was older. He had a stroke. So he wasn't, the fire had gone out. But my dad in his prime was, he was a total character. He was a scary guy. He was very loving. I think this is probably common for bipolar people, like very one way, and then it could turn on a dime, and then the Dr. Jekyll, the Mr. Hyde would come out, and they didn't. It was like they were two different people.
Yeah, it reminds me, and maybe because I just, as you know, I am really into surfing, and it kind of reminds me of like those like guys in the lineup from Hawaii that are like, they're cool, but
as long as you're on their side.
But when it's not cool, they're not cool, and that's kind of like the way I kind of see it. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but
if it was consistent, like if they were consistently like that, who you're getting.
Yeah.
Sorry, I keep hitting that.
No, it's fine.
It was unpredictable. It was definitely unpredictable. My dad was unpredictable. So my mom, I think, got through that by drinking. That was her thing, and she got sober, I think, when I was 14. So she's been sober for almost 43 years now.
At 14, and they got divorced at 3. So there was 11 years of pretty chaos.
Yeah, and my mom, they split custody. My dad got the weekends, my mom got the week. And she worked 2 jobs, and we often had housekeepers who lived with us who were like taking care of dinner, making sure we were back from school. My mom was like working and also trying to have like new relationships because she wanted partnership. So that was my mom. So she was doing that whole thing. My dad when I was growing up, I didn't know what he did. He was a private detective for a while. He was a cocaine dealer for a while. But of course, I didn't know he was, except I saw these big bags of these, like, it looked like bars of soap, but it was what they call mannitol. It was like
it's like a filler.
Yeah, it's like to cut up the cocaine. And, I had all these weird uncles, Uncle Ricky, Uncle Freddie, Uncle Mark. Like, they're not my uncles. Who are they? Like, they're really weird, But like, what, Dad? Why we were in Hawaii when you're watching this guy Freddie? We were like on the 9th floor of a hotel watching this guy swimming laps. It was Uncle Freddie. I'm like, Dad, why are we watching Uncle Freddie? And my dad was just kind of like teetering. I guess he owed us money? Problem. Yeah, something like that. And he was kind of scheming, and it was weird. And my dad was also, he never remarried. So my dad was like, he was a player. He was a pickup artist for sure. There was always another girl around, and he was a horny guy. So he had a lot of sex. He and his friends all had a lot of sex. During this, I'm just saying it. But, during the fires, when we were going to have to evacuate, the only thing I grabbed were all my photographs. Grabbed all the photographs of crates. 10,000 photographs. This is like pre-digital, analog, like film, negatives, and put them in my car. And then when the threat was over, I took all the pictures out and was like, it's probably time to look through them. And my son, Jordan, is like, Dad, can I look through the pictures with you? And I'm like, let me go through them first, because my dad, I had a bag that I'd previously filled with all of the X-rated pictures that my dad took of different girlfriends. And some of them I've sent to you.
Harry Bush.
Oh, God. Anyway, just crazy. I'm like, oh, I remember that woman. I've never seen her naked before. But, so going around with my dad was like being in the front seat of the car and him pulling over at a bus stop and seeing some girl at the bus stop and him going, hey, what are you doing?
Creepy.
You want a party? And some of them would say yes,
It's a numbers game.
It's a numbers game. My dad would say to me, he's like, look, if I go for 10 chicks and 7 of them say fuck you, I'm in the Hall of Fame. I'm killing it. I'm in the Hall of Fame. And so I'm like, okay, all right, that's, I that was not my style, but like that was his style. So anyway, growing up in the midst of that, it was very like, especially being a father to a son now, it was entirely inappropriate. And I totally understand why some of my good friends, their parents were very reticent to send their kids over to my house.
Did you not go over to the Millers?
No. There was my dad had a Betamax when Betamax's pre-VHS came out, and there's porn, and it was just, he's going to raise a couple of boys by letting them know what an adult male is like from his perspective,
When you had Malaya, was it like a weird thinking at that, because you were brought up so male, right? You were brought up so male, and you were around that so much. Was it like anything like in terms of not scared for her, but
well, I wasn't scared of her. For me, like
no, I'm not saying for you, but for her
to be predated upon by men like my dad or something.
Just because like you've seen it.
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say that first of all, when I knew from a very early age that I was very different than my dad. I wasn't going to have the impact on other people that my dad had on other people. So I knew that. I just wasn't my dad, even though, as I got older, I recognized the ways that who he is, like, did make an impact on me. And at the time, I couldn't appreciate it. I just wanted to define myself as separate from it. And some of it, was not wrong. His delivery was wrong, but the lessons that he derived, I recognized as like, oh, he was tuned into the way things are. I just didn't like I didn't like it. But so I married, wife number one. Is Megan, was my ex's name. Very different than anybody I'd ever been with. Totally not the kind of girl, like my dad never liked her. They were like oil and water. She was like an artist. She was, outspoken, that my dad did not like her. So, but I knew when she got pregnant that I wanted to have a girl. I didn't want to have a son for my first child. I wanted a daughter, and
That's interesting.
Yeah, I just felt like as a young dad, I felt the weight of raising a boy as a father, like it's a big responsibility no matter what, whether you have a boy or a girl, but a father and his son, that's a really powerful relationship. And I don't think I was
ready.
I wasn't ready, but I was ready to love on and dote on and take care of a girl.
Dote, I like that word.
Yeah. So I wasn't I wasn't afraid for her. And then also my friends, you know, people would say, oh, you got, knowing, you know,
Your
I
past.
was, yeah, my upbringing and as a teenager and even earlier than a teenager, I was like, you know, sexually active and always liked girls, and you know, I didn't pick up on girls like my dad did, but I was
But
like, I always loved women.
You're a very likable person.
Thank you, Billy. But I always loved women, and so taking care of her, like my friends would say, oh, now you're going to get it back, and I'm like I was never going to be the kind of guy who was like, you know, hard on boyfriends or something like that, or you know, didn't want my daughter to enjoy life.
Yeah.
I want her to enjoy life. It's like, you know, romance and all that. It's like
It's all part
some of
of
the
it.
best stuff of life.
Yeah.
I want her to have all of that stuff. So I was never like that. And now we're like best friends.
Yeah.
So.
Can you tell the one story about, because you guys would go, you and your dad and your brother would go to Hawaii for summers at all, like a lot.
Yeah.
And like camp and things. Can you tell a story about when your dad made you drive the car and you're like 14?
Oh God, I wasn't 14. I was like 12.
Okay, so let's just frame this.
Oh, which one? The time when we got stoned? That time?
Where where you used to.
I drove the car a lot when we were in Hawaii. So I'll set the framework. So whenever we went to Hawaii, we went, I don't know if it was every summer because the memory gets a little unclear. We went frequently, like my dad, however he made his money, you know, whether
there
he
was enough
pretending to be an attorney, and, you know, to settle insurance cases, or cocaine dealer, whatever he was doing, there was money. There wasn't always money. There was very frequently no money. Like my dad was, you know, I had to buy my dad a tent to live in a friend's backyard when I was in my 20s. So it wasn't like there was always money, but he saved it up. And if he had it, we went to Hawaii. We went for a month. He bought a cheap car, a Maui Cruiser, he would say, and we'd buy it at the beginning of the month. He'd sell it at the end of the month, and that was when he taught us to drive. And my brother was like, I think 9 or 10. He drove the car. My friend Jed, my best friend Jed, my dad.
Wait, Jed's parents let him go with you to Hawaii for the month?
Yeah, for the month.
Jesus.
Yeah. Well, they were loaded too, so they were. But they also knew us, and it was. So my dad, he just let us drive. He taught us how to drive. It was an automatic. It wasn't
but
like,
still,
it wasn't like a stick.
You were like 12 years old, and your dad's all fucking doped up, and he's like, "You're driving," and you just throw you the keys, and you're just.
I don't even remember the first time I drove. It must have been like driving like at an amusement park go-kart. So I had some basic idea of how to steer, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I remember there was one time. This time I was 14. He had a friend. This guy David Dodds was his name, and he lived on Maui. He was a dope dealer, but he was like, I think he was a grower also, because he had like, I just remember he's like, yeah, we're going over to David's house. Okay. And we went into the living room, and he had a paper grocery bag filled with buds. So this is like, so I'm 14. So this is, 14 is 1982. So he had the original like Maui Wowie, which I'd certainly heard of, because I had, even though I was 14, I had smoked plenty of pot by then. Big bag of buds, just brimming, and we got high, and my dad got
on the Maui Wowie.
On the Maui Wowie, we got in this living room, and like my dad got high, I got a little bit high, and my dad, I think, got higher than me, and he was like, you got to drive. I can't drive. I'm like, I'm 14. I'm also high, So I'm like, okay.
I'm 14 years old, and I'm driving home stoned.
Yes. And so, I managed to get us home.
Of course you did, Larry.
I managed to get us home. But, and And now, I mean, to this day, I'm still like, when we go on vacations and stuff.
You're always
like,
a driver.
I'm the driver. And even back in high school, if like we were on mushrooms or if we, took acid, I made sure I was the driver because I want to be in charge of that.
And so the last 3 summers we've done summer vacationing in Europe. And by the way, that was 3 years ago was my first time ever going to Europe, which is insane. But we've gone and our families always go somewhere each summer, and we've done all through the U.S. as well. But the last 3 summers we've gone through, and we were in the first year we were in Portugal and Spain, and then next year we were in London and Scotland.
Yep.
And then last year we were in Italy.
Yep.
Northern.
Yep.
And Larry's always a driver because we don't go there and we go like it's not like a vacation where we're going like on guides or we just do whatever we want.
Right. Rented a big van to hold nine of us or 8 of us.
Yeah. And the last 2 years, Larry and I have brought a healthy supply of treats. And the last 2 years it's been microdosing mushrooms. And I would say, Larry, those are some of my best times of me and you just rolling around in those vans and just laughing our asses off and not out of control.
Well, nobody knowing. Really.
No,
now they will.
Yeah,
Here they are.
but no one even knows. Like we're so
because it's we're not like tripping.
Yeah,
it's just enough
to have a good time.
Yeah, to relax a little bit, open the heart up. And open the mind up to the experience.
And we got some Grateful Dead on, and we're just playing some tunes. Remember this last trip? We were going through those tunnels, and I was super high. I'm like, oh my god, this is like a video game.
I'm like, yep. And I'm driving.
Yeah, and then we also this last trip, your wife set up this cooking class, and I was like, the day of, I'm like, oh my god, we're going to someone's house to cook. I'm like, this is gonna be horrible. It was so much fun. It was beautiful. I can't think of the lady's name. Do you know the lady's name? Anyways, Amy.
That's right.
Amy, I'll tag you in here. And she's in this like beautiful, what do they call it? Like a cottage, like.
It was like a loft apartment. It was
like, beautiful loft apartment
in Como, Lake Como.
Yeah, Lake Como, and like the view is awesome, and it's like sunny and well lit, and she taught us how to make pasta and all these sauces. And I forgot on the walk up, I dropped not one, but I took 2. And sometimes those things kick in a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I remember she was teaching us, and she's like, okay, you're going to go first, Bill. And I'm like, I have no idea what you just said, lady. And I was like, and then I started laughing, and I had to walk out.
So you were slightly beyond a microdose. It was like a medio dose.
Yeah. But, God, fun times, dude.
Fun times.
One more thing about that. Remember where we would always pretend like we lost our parking ticket, so we would have to pay?
Right. Yeah.
In every garage. Yeah. Every garage we parked in, we would say, oh, we lost it. And they would sometimes say, okay, $5, go out for free.
Yeah, we would negotiate.
We saved hundreds of dollars that trip.
Yeah, we did.
I loved it.
We did.
So just going back one more thing. So, so your younger brother, Mark.
Yep.
Died young.
Yes, I was 17, he was 15, and Mark handled our upbringing very differently. Mark, I think, we were just wired differently. Mark was more sensitive. Mark internalized a lot of my dad's anger, and he was resentful of our family situation, and he grew up and like gravitated in the early 80s into the punk scene. So like 82, 83, LA, was sort of the hotbed of punk rock. And there were kids who gravitated towards that, became edgy, they were slam dancing. Most all these kids had family issues. Yeah. And Mark was one of them. And he responded by rebelling basically, and he fell into like also along with the punk scene were these like gangs, and one of these gangs was like, it was like a valley gang, a bunch of valley white boys basically, and he fell in with this crowd of kids that were all dealing with the same stuff, and he started getting in trouble. Nothing horrible. I think he didn't, like, some of them were violent. Like, they would beat up gay people, they would beat up homeless people. My brother didn't do that, but some of the older kids did. So he was sort of like being mentored by these older troubled kids that, like at the time, some of them, like, if you ask me, have I ever hated anyone? I would say no, I can't say I've ever really, like, as a Laker fan in the 80s,
Boston.
I hated Danny Ainge, or I hated ML Carr, or, McHale, or, Lane Beer. But like that's like sports hate. But there was one kid in this group. There was one kid. But what were you gonna say?
Back then that was.
Oh, it was real.
It was.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like,
this was not being a Laker fan now, where it's like you can just But when you're a teenager, it like matters. Oh my God, Lakers it ruined my summer. Like, in '84, or '82, it's like, oh, it ruined my summer. But it also, like, it was, anyway, that's a whole other story. Lakers in the 80s. But there were kids in this punk scene that were mentors of Mark that I hated. And to this day, I know they were just victims of their own kind of circumstance. But anyway, Mark got in with this crowd, and when he was 15, he snuck out one night, went to a nightclub in the Valley called Hot Tracks on Van Nuys Boulevard. And actually, if you've ever seen the movie Boogie Nights, at the very beginning of the movie, the club that Roller Girl is at is Hot Tracks. So when I went and saw that movie, I had no idea that was going to be in there, and it was like, whoa, because Mark got into a fight with another 15-year-old kid that he got into a fight on a Wednesday night with this kid who like was trying to pick up on his girlfriend, and they got into a fight, and then two nights later that kid came back, and Mark was there too with a gun, and shot him in the head. And that was a Friday night, and Saturday morning I was actually supposed to go to Catalina with my friend Perry, and my mom called. I was at my dad's because it was a weekend, and by this time my brother had stopped living with my dad. There was so much chaos and fighting, like fist fights and like crazy shit, that my brother was no longer living with my dad. And my mom called, like, I can't even go to the state of mind she was in, telling me that she'd gotten a knock at the door by the sheriff's department or something like that, like nightmare. I had to wake my dad up because he was asleep. I'm supposed to go to Catalina that day, and I'm like, Dad, wake up. And I had to tell him. It's like worst moment of my life. It was beyond. So anyway, Mark died, and then life after that changed.
Yeah, how? I mean, what were the emotion that you go through? I mean, I can't imagine it, dude. It's
disbelief. That's the thing. Like, as a 17-year-old, so it's summer. It's before my senior year at North Hollywood High, and I mean, when something like that, like, it doesn't register. That's the thing. You hear the words, you know what it means, but I didn't
grasp it.
No, it was impossible. When I say didn't grasp it, it was like, what do we know about death? We know that when somebody dies, it's forever. It's not, time doesn't move backwards, it moves forwards. And if somebody dies, they are taken out of any possible future. And it's hard to believe that, it was hard to believe he was actually not coming back. It was all such a whirlwind, because he was buried within the week. And then, we shared a bedroom together. So it's like,
all the shit's in there.
Yeah, just the bed is empty, and like,
oh my God.
it's impossible to accept that he was never coming back. And I thought, he's going to come back for me. Like, he's going to come back. He'll come, when I go to sleep, he'll visit me in my dreams. He's not and I didn't say that, but it was like, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
And then it didn't happen. It just never happened. Not that I didn't end up dreaming about him later, but I couldn't believe it. And it wasn't really until, so he died in August. Jed, my friend Jed, and I went up to UC Santa Barbara to Isla Vista for Halloween. We had a friend who was a freshman at UCSB. We were seniors, and we went up there for Halloween.
Crazy.
Which is like the best.
Insane.
Halloween,
The best.
I don't know what it's like now.
I'm sure it's tame, but back
I think
then,
they've shut it down a lot. But I mean, it was
I've done that.
50,000 kids all around the same age.
Just getting fucked up.
Oh my God, so fun, so fun. Anyway, we went there and we ate mushrooms, maybe took LSD, I don't remember. But, for anybody who hasn't had a psychedelic experience with mushrooms or LSD, it's not like you're just wasted, like you're drunk. You see things in a very clear way. You see the way the world is, and in the way we're
it slows everything down.
Well, it's like a veil is lifted.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I was like, oh. I think I even called my mom afterwards, and I was like, Mom, I have the answers. And she's like, well, what are they? I said, you just have to ask the question. What's the question? Anyway, I got a lot of insight from it. And at one point I just said to Jed, I'm like, Jed, Mark died, didn't he? He's like, yeah. I'm like, whoa. Like, it really landed.
Yeah, it set in.
Like, wow. And then my senior year, life up to that point had been me just sort of like falling forward from one adventure to the next. But that marked this point where I started like kind of being retrospective and like looking at myself, not just being in myself, but like stepping back and looking at myself and going, something has changed. Like, I wasn't just me anymore. Now who was I? I was Larry with all these personality traits. I have a brother, like who I am. And then my brother's gone, and I was sort of untethered a little bit. And it didn't take until I went to UCSB. Like, what I noticed was I had been acting like me, but I wasn't the same anymore. So I was acting. Before, I was just being me.
Yeah.
But now after Mark died, I was being me out of habit, but I was no longer the same person. It took until my freshman year of college, more psychedelic experiences too, but also to realize, wow, I think I might be depressed. Like, I was never diagnosed. I'm just saying that's how I felt.
I'm sure
like,
you do. I mean, think about
like,
it,
I think I'm depressed from all this, and it made sense. I went and talked to somebody and relied. I'd met new friends, which
which is weird too, right? Because then you feel almost like not guilt, but because you've had such a close group of friends, and then you're meeting new friends. That's different too, because I know, like, even today, like I don't spend as much time with my old friends as I used to. Sometimes I do feel guilty, but it's just because I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm trying to make a deal here and there, so I'm always out and about. But then I feel like I don't always talk to my old friends like as much as I should.
Yeah. And my situation is a little different because we all went to college together too.
Oh, they all went to UC.
Mike, Brady, they lived together. We were all in a fraternity together. So Mike and Brady went to UCSB. Rob, he's a year younger, but Rob went to UCSB. Jed and Jeremiah, you don't know Jeremiah as well, but Jeremiah's great. Jeremiah and Jed.
He had sweet shoes on, I remember. He had some like...
Who, Jeremiah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had some like cool like Nikes or something, I remember. Or like Adidas, I forgot.
Okay. So Jeremiah, he actually stayed down here, but Jed and my friend Todd, you never met Todd. Todd's crazy. Todd was one of our best friends too, another addict, a good heart, but also wounded. They moved up to Santa Barbara just to hang out with us, you know. So
of course,
so all of my childhood friends basically all still were there, and after graduation we worked together. So I never really left them, but I did add to my life with people who didn't know me for my history. They knew me as I was then. So it was important, like, for me to meet people that I didn't have to carry the baggage of who I was.
Yeah.
Because it was a transition, because my friends, even though they knew my brother died, a lot of them, you know, it's like you can't really relate themselves to, I mean, they all had feelings about Mark dying because they knew Mark very intimately, but you know, there's still the expectation that I'm going to be the me they've always known, and I play my role in the friend group, which is usually like I sacrifice myself for the humor of other people. Like, Larry, do this crazy shit, or hey, you guys want me to do this crazy shit? They're like, yeah, and I would do the crazy shit. But that, you know, that was no longer me, so my new friends didn't expect that. So it allowed me to understand myself a little more, because, you know, we're older, and well, they were getting to know me as I was.
Well, and I think, you know, I think when your friends, and when you're that age, you're so much more selfish because you can be, because you don't have responsibilities.
And when you're like 19, you're in college, you're close to being an adult, but you're not really an adult. You're in high school. You're still in high school, except you don't live with your family, so there's nobody watching you. You know.
You and I were at a concert at the Ball. We saw, who did we see? Not Blur. Who did we see? We saw some concert at the Ball, and you and I took some mushrooms when we rode the scooters up.
Sylvan Esso? Did we see? No. Who did we see?
It was like a 90s band. It was like I think a girl. I forgot. Anyways, I remember like we were there, and then it was like we were, for whatever reason, our temperature kept changing because we were fucked up. So then we were like sitting up high, and then we just left, and you and I walked the back way out of the Ball.
Yep.
And I walked by places where you lived.
Yeah.
And I remember because I was pretty fucked up. I was high. Like, you drove my car home that night for me. And you were telling me stories about your childhood. And while I've heard them, and you've told me about Mark, and it was like, but that was one time where I remember like it went deep with me, and I was like, fuck, dude, like this is like, this ain't, this ain't
I
no
remember
joke.
that vividly. So my mom at the time, so when we were in high school, like, to give you some context, and you know this, but you know, between my mom and my dad, by the time I went to college, my parents moved 22 times.
Jesus.
Because, you know, they rented.
Yeah.
And, but all within, you know, a 5 square mile radius. So Studio City, North Hollywood, Sherman Oaks, these are all areas in the San Fernando Valley. And, but in high school, my mom had a boyfriend. This guy, when she got sober, she and my stepdad, Bobby, who was a wonderful guy, a deadhead, they divorced when my mom got sober, and then she ended up in a relationship with this guy, Jim, who was also in AA, in the program, and they moved in together, and he lived in Hollywood. So my mom rented a house in Hollywood above the Bowl, and we walked up Hillcrest or whatever the street was. That was where we lived, and we walked past the house that we lived in when my brother died. That was the house that we were living in, and this was 30. It had to be 30. I don't know how old were we? 50 yet? Was I 50? I don't even know.
Yeah.
Maybe right there. And I hadn't been past that house in 30 years. It was exactly the same paint color, same everything. And we're a little bit high. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Dude, this is the house I lived in when my brother died. And all the memories came, like, not that they had to come flooding back. I'm like in touch with all my most of my maybe not all my memories, but most of them. But yeah, that was a total trip. That's the thing about growing up in the same city and living in the same city your whole, like, your connection to these places that, you know, it's like all still accessible.
Yeah, you know, so when I go back to Palm Springs, while I love going back, because I don't go there a lot, when I go there, I get feelings that sometimes I don't want, because I don't have to experience all the time, right? Because I don't go by Elmer's, or I don't go by Las Cosuelas, or I go by this park or my school. And because my parents both died young as well, not that young by any means, but it's hard for me. And so we always talk about that we're going to retire there like part of the year, which I think we will. There's a part of me that it will take time for me to digest it and be okay with it all, because I don't think I ever really dealt with it, because I left Palm Springs when I was 18 and I went home for 6 months.
I mean, was it traumatic or something? I mean, I don't remember you describing your childhood.
But just because of my parents dying young and I wasn't there. I mean, my mom died my dad died at 56 and my mom died at 62. Like, I don't know, like, that trips me out. Like, that really fucks with my head, where it's just weird to me.
Yeah, because because you left Palm Springs your parents were still living there, and to go back there, your parents aren't there, and
yeah,
so it gets you in touch with your relationship with your parents, or unhad conversations, correct. Unresolved.
Yeah. And then, you know, there was a time where when all this happened, like, you could have went totally south, like you could have went like in a bad direction, but
sure.
that's not you. Like you don't like, I'll say this, you don't have the addiction gene like I do. I mean, you have other addictions like running, I think, and things like that, I think, are part of it, but you put it in a positive manner, where with me, I just self-destruct, and I just want to put myself through so much pain as possible, and you don't, that's not you.
No, and it's like, you know, people will say, God, it's incredible that you were able to navigate all of that. And I'm like, it's not like that. Like, it's not like it's incredible, because I couldn't help it.
Yeah.
You can't control the way you're wired.
Yep. No, it's good.
And luckily for me and my kids and my wife and my friends, and, you know, like, that I didn't, that was not in the cards for me. And I remember, you know, as a young, like an 8-year-old, I said, you are not going to be like your dad. And I already wasn't really like my dad, you know? Yeah. And, you know, it is crazy the way, like, genetics are, because my dad was an addict for sure. He was like, my dad was he wasn't like, not that he didn't drink. He could get fucked up. And alcohol was, like, for most people, it's bad medicine. My dad, like most people taking, you know, that are addicted, they're self-medicating. Why do we take medicine? Because we're sick. You want to get over the sickness. You want to feel better. Why do people take antidepressants? Because they're depressed. They want to feel better. Self-medicating and addiction is like you're trying to take things to feel differently. The problem is the way you feel. And my dad, you know, he would, like, alcohol, bad medicine. Whatever he was trying to fix, alcohol, your case too, bad medicine. He took Quaaludes back when Quaaludes were a thing. Those were fantastic. But
I never take them.
The last time I took a Quaalude was in Palm Springs during spring break, and there was a riot.
What is a Quaalude?
This was 1985. It was like a mild, it was a sedative, but it had hypnotic qualities. It had, like, I don't know how to describe it, but it was like, they banned it. They're like, that is too good. It's banned. Like, you can't make anything close. It's too good. People loved it. It was the best drug, Quaaludes.
My mom.
Roar 714s.
My mom and dad liked those.
And I was never into pills, but my dad was totally into pills. Meanie greenies, and all that stuff. And, anyway, it's crazy that with my mom being alcoholic, my dad being addicted to all the things he was addicted to. It was kind of like the way you've described your addiction. It's like whatever it is, yes, yep,
Yeah.
You know, my dad was like that too, and I just luckily those genes weren't activated with me. But I think my brother, I think he would have probably had to like
Deal with
battle that.
Yeah.
I think so.
You know, since we're talking about addiction, I mean, you've seen me, you've known me for 18 years now, whatever that number is.
15, 16
whatever
years,
that number. And I mean, when you first met me, I was drinking a lot, but not every day. I would just go through the fun zone, and you've seen me go through this journey of now I don't drink alcohol at all. I'm almost two years sober in like 3 weeks. Can you describe like how I was when I drank compared to what I am today?
Temperamental, easily angered. You were like very twitchy, very nervous, like the leg going. And it was like, it was harder to be around you.
Really?
When you're drinking. Yeah. You not drinking is markedly better. Like, and also like, I think you couldn't just have a drink.
No.
It would continue, and it would turn into other things too. It was like it turned on a not a good switch,
So were you scared of me? Did you not like being around me?
I didn't like being around you as much when you're drinking, no. And did it scare me? No, it didn't scare me. Like, I mean,
You're
what
still
are we gonna do,
kicking my
fist
ass.
fight? No, but I feel like there were interactions, though we might have more negative interactions, and I didn't want to have any negative interactions, but I think it's just the way the alcohol works on people,
That makes me. I mean, it makes me sad, but looking back, I know, and I knew going through it how I was, and I knew that I had to stop. I just wasn't ready to during those times.
Yeah. Well, probably most of the people in your life would say some version of that about your drinking, right? I mean, what about Jutes and
No, I've never even asked.
Milos?
No, I think, but I mean, I also think that they've known me since I've been 14, and they've seen me through the years, and I was always the party guy,
right?
And so I think they just accepted it.
Right. That's just Bill.
Yeah.
But that was really just Bill on alcohol. Because you, not on alcohol, you're still Bill.
So much better.
Yeah. Well, because there's a whole way of being that is not there because it's not being activated by the alcohol.
Yeah. It is by far the best decision I've ever made. Not ever. Not the top. It's in the top 5.
Well, it's rare for people to get sober not without the support of AA. I mean, some people do their medicated, treatments now, but like being in a program that you're following, like usually that's the way that people, get sober rather than what you did, which is like what they call white knuckling it, where you're just like, you just are able to do it on your own. Like it's rare for people to be able to do it without that support.
Yeah, but I think too is because I think it wasn't like one day I said I'm going to get sober. Like this is something in my head for 10 years.
Yeah, you also tried it. You went through stretches of time where you didn't drink.
When I didn't do it, and then I would try and drink again, and the same. It was like those big nights would be the same outcome. But even today, being LA sober, I still have to watch myself, like because I'm just an addictive personality with everything. Either I work too much, or I want to surf all the time, or even with like Adderall. Like I gotta watch how much Adderall I take, because it's all those things that when I feel something good, I want more of it.
Yeah.
So it's something that I have to continue to.
Yeah. And I've never trusted that myself. Like for instance, taking ecstasy or Molly, like that feeling you get, which is such a good feeling. you could see somebody wanting that feeling more.
Yeah.
So they, but for whatever reason, I think I would feel that, and I'd be like, yeah, I get it, but I also see the path, like, oh, to chase this feeling, you've got to do that, and it's like, nah. Like, I naturally just didn't trust it.
So last year, I went on my surf trip to Indonesia, and on that trip in Tokyo, I had some mushrooms and I had some gummies. But when I went to Indo, I don't bring anything because, like, I probably could have taken.
It's a Muslim country.
Yeah, I just didn't want to even deal with any of that. And I will say, because I was there for 10 days, so it was nearly 2 weeks with planes and things. I didn't do anything, like zero, like nothing.
Yeah.
I actually think that's probably the best version of Bill. But also at that point, I was surfing every day. I wasn't really having to deal with work or family, and so I didn't have a lot to deal with besides surfing. That's all it was. And so when I come back, right or wrong, I like to have a head change. I like to think about something differently. But that's probably the best version of me, but I like being LA sober where I can still partake.
Yeah.
But I have to watch it.
Yeah, it seems like the things that trigger people towards like using substances or maybe and abusing substances, stressors and demons, And when you're off surfing, the stressors, are, you're not working. None of that's all, maybe it's family stuff, that's gone. Demons, that's another story. But, it seems like maybe you were doing it more like as a way to deal with stress.
Oh, for sure.
Rather than battling demons.
I think it's also, it's like, with me, it was like, almost like never being good enough. And I think because I put so much pressure on myself as a kid because of my stuttering problem, and I think I didn't make it bigger, but it was such a big piece of who I was that I never thought I was good enough. And then I always wanted to prove myself. Well, proving yourself, then you put more pressure on yourself, and you put these high marks that I want to hit, and then you're in it, and you go, fuck, I have a lot of responsibility and I have a lot going on, and then you're dealing with it. It can be a lot.
So did you think that the high you or the fucked up you was a better version of you?
No, it was completely.
Well, it was, but when you were under did you was that the impetus to do it at all?
No, it's weird, dude. It's like, it's almost fun it's almost better for like 2 hours. And then I'm in my head so much, it's worse. But you don't want to think about, like, I'd be fucked up and go take a leak, and you look in the mirror and I look at myself, I'm like, you fucking idiot. What are you, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But at that point, you don't want to, you just keep it going until there's no more whatever you want. And then in the morning, it's just crushing. It's crushing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people also party, like, it's a way of like dealing with social anxiety too. Like if you get you're not. I don't know if you have social anxiety because you're very social, and seemingly comfortable being social, but sometimes being around big groups of people, I don't know. It can be a little overwhelming, and sometimes partying or taking something can ease that, but looking in the mirror is where it all gets revealed, like, oh, you're just kind of, it's like you're bullshitting yourself.
Well, it's so you would never think this of me, like, while I'm outgoing, I also am kind of an introvert, and you would like I love being alone.
Yeah,
I love my downtime.
Yeah.
Like, it takes work for me to be on all the time, And like, there's sometimes I really enjoy, but sometimes I'm like, oh my, I cannot go to this conference tomorrow. I don't want to talk, but that's what I do for work.
Yep.
Like Theo Von had, Motley Crue, Tommy Leon, and they were talking about doing Blow. And Theo was like, I enjoy doing Blow by myself. And Tommy said the same thing.
That's a trip.
I
would never have thought.
I would say the same thing.
Really? That's funny.
Which is nuts, right?
To me, it was always like, I mean, I didn't do a ton of it, but like Rob's
me either. But
had, he dealt it.
Yeah.
There was always cocaine around in high school, like a bar of soap, like dropped on a paper plate, and it's like, oh, okay. It was good. It was like uncut. It was like, but it was, to me, it was like always. It was not my cup of tea. But I
can't see it being your cup of tea.
No, but not like, I actually found it to be like very like interest, like, so like I felt social on it, and I also got really into people because I'm more of like, not that I can't do a group, but I'm like more of a one-on-one person, and I felt like it would allow me to get really interested in the person I was talking to. So I didn't mind it, but it wasn't.
I think with me it's because of I think if you have ADHD, I think it almost locks you up. So it almost does the complete opposite with me.
Right.
So it almost makes me like so calm, so locked up where you don't have that, so it's not.
Yeah.
It's complete opposite.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I have my own version of ADHD, just not H, but my mind, it's hard. It can be hard to focus. So sometimes like, I don't know, like microdosing actually helps me
for sure
to focus.
And I do think that microdosing really helped me remain being sober in the beginning, because I didn't have that the first time I did it, and by having that, it was enough of a happiness in my head that I never carved any alcohol. And now, like, I never think of it. Like the only time I think of alcohol now is like if I'm like walking by like a pool and someone's drinking like a glass of wine, like I'm like, oh my god, that'd be kind of nice, but I know where it goes.
Right. An Aperol spritz.
Yeah. So the first Europe trip, I was still drinking.
Yep, I remember.
And I had some big days and like some big nights.
I remember. But not in London. You were sober by London, I think.
Well, I was sober, yeah. Completely. I did not.
Or like not drinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, enough of that. So you met Hick in college?
No, Hick I met in 10th grade year of high school. I guess I was a sophomore.
Okay, so you met Hick here.
He was like, I don't remember how I met Hick, but like I was friends with Oliver, a friend of his, whose sister became my first love, Alice. I think that's how I met Hick. I don't know. He's only a few months older than me, but he's grade above me.
Okay.
So yeah, we met in high school.
Did Hick go to school with you, or did Hick go to UCLA?
No, he went to San Diego, UC San Diego. He studied marine bio in San Diego.
And then so you guys moved back to LA, and you were living in Malibu?
Well, no. So we stayed friends, and we would what did we do? Hick. So we started hanging out in high school. We started partying together. He's fun and funny, and what did we do? First of all, we started a business together. We went to, it wasn't Costco then. It was called Price Club, and Price Club sold alcohol. Hick had an older brother. We would buy booze at Price Club and sell it to high school kids. That was our first business together, and we didn't make any money. Because I don't know, it's always about marketing, always about marketing, and there's in margins. So like the margins were very poor on this, so you couldn't really make much money, but it was kind of fun. And we just started, what did we do? We started like, he was on the swim team. He was a good swimmer. And after I broke my neck playing football, I was looking for a sport to play. and he'd say, "Oh, you should join the swim team." So I joined the swim team, even though I couldn't swim. And we would get fucked up at lunch and go to swim practice. And then when he went to San Diego, I was at Santa Barbara. We'd go on Baja surf trips together. And then after I graduated, he and my friend Dave Hirschman, who you never met because he passed away when Malaya was like a year old. So when was this? 2003, I think he died. But anyway, they started a business together doing like they were like doing CD-ROM development. I didn't even know what it was. And I called them to see what was going on, and they're like, "Larry, when you get back, you got to join us. We're making interactive erotic CD-ROMs. We're going to make one." I'm like, I've never, what is that? What are you talking about? But I was like, yeah, it sounds, I want to have a business with my friends. So like Hick and I didn't live in Malibu together until probably 2 years into our business, something like that. So I came back from traveling in Central America with my girlfriend, Laura, came back, lived in my Volkswagen bus outside of Hick's house in the Valley in North Hollywood. And Hick lived with his grandparents because his mom was kind of loony and his dad was loony too, but he was like an economist, like smart, super smart, but were not set up to have kids. So Hick lived with his grandparents and they were old. And so we could get away with anything at Hick's house. So anyway, that was also after his grandparents passed away, they got the house and I lived outside the house, and we made the first. It's called Night Watch. It was like interactive X-rated CD-ROM, and it was crazy. We didn't film. Well, let's see. We ended up filming stuff, but it was we were totally miscast in the roles, but it was an adventure and it was really, really funny. It was really funny. It was a funny adventure, and the fact that there's no book or movie about it is,
well, there should be.
There should be. I know.
And then tell the story about you guys went on Merv Griffin.
Oh no! So one of the first things I did with our little company, which was called Interotica, one of the first things I did, besides coming up with what was our next product going to be, was like this. Like once we decided on the next project, I was like, this has got to get press. So I started doing PR. I'd never done PR in my life. And at the time, there's no internet. This is like, there's no World Wide Web.
Penny saver.
Well, there was a book of like PR contacts. I don't even know where we got it. Like national, all the network news, like Donahue, Joan Rivers, all the show. Like if you wanted to get in touch with somebody, there was actually a physical book and you had to get the book.
Like a Zagat or something.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I made it my job to call every major network, all the shows, and pitch them on this idea like, hey, we're doing the future of sexuality. It's like virtual reality sex. It's going, and of course they were fascinated. So I got on to the Joan Rivers show. That was the first show I was on. And then I was on the Donahue show at the time. It was about the future of sex.
So you went on and talked about the company. Was it just you?
No, it's just me. It was just me. They didn't want to have their faces out there, and I didn't really. I mean, understandably, but I didn't really care because I didn't feel like lascivious. I wasn't like I didn't feel like a scumbag or anything like that. I was this young. I was 24 or 25. I was fresh faced, and it was just fun. Like we were doing this really crazy, wild thing, and yeah, so I was on the Joan Rivers show with like a prototype of the next disc that we made, which was called The Interactive Adventures of Seymour Butts, and it was great. It was so funny. It was so funny.
But could they show it? I mean,
no. We made a special version where everything was blocked out and stuff like that, and Joan Rivers was totally totally sweet, and really, it was really fun. They put me up at the Plaza Hotel in New
You're
York.
balling.
Oh, it was great. It was great. And so we got press all over the world. It made frankly, it made our business, because you can't pay for that kind of, pay, but it's not, it's like organic free advertising. It was incredible.
It's the best.
Yeah, that made us millions.
And
not me personally, but
and then
the
you
company.
sold that company
We sold the company
to who?
Well, the company went through changes. So first 4 years, basically, we all burned out. Nobody wanted to have anything to do with X-rated anything. It was none of us were. It was like a means to an end.
Yeah.
So at the time, we also came up with my friend Dave Hirschman. His dream was to do virtual. The idea was virtual Vegas. That was the future of this, is gaming. And using the money from the erotic CD-ROMs, we funded Virtual Vegas, which was, at the time, there was no real gambling, but it was 3D generated along with live action dealers, pretty dealers playing gambling games. And we sold some of the first interactive ads. Downey actually sold some of the first interactive ads for this platform.
All smart guys, all of them.
So basically, although he was more Go Digital, which was a CD-ROM magazine that we did, but that's a separate thing. But it was this was the beginning of all this stuff. And it was instead of gambling against other people for money, you're gambling against the computer, and if you win, you get prizes. And they were sponsored by big brands. So that became the business that continued on. We mothballed or bankrupted the X-rated company, and Virtual Vegas became something called Flipside, and it got sold to Vivendi Universal. And it was right at, this was 2008, I think, 2008, 2009. Right, the deal closed the week before the .com bubble burst.
That's
basically
crazy.
So we got out, it closed, and then the next week the .com bubble burst, and the whole market disappeared.
I didn't realize it was that late, Larry, because we sold our company at the same exact time. We were it was unbelievable that we were able to get it done, the exact same time.
Yeah, and I actually was out. I had nothing. I was already in Chinese medical school at that time, and had nothing to do with the business other than going up and visiting Hirsch and hanging out and stuff like that, and seeing what he was doing, because I was still a shareholder. So we ended up getting paid out a little bit. I didn't get paid as much as I could have or should have, but it was still, it was not bad for a 28-year-old.
And then, God, we totally passed on when you got cancer back in college.
Yeah.
And is that one of the main reasons why you went into what you do now?
I mean, at the time, sort of. It has to be.
Yeah.
It has to be. Yes, I guess it is, because when I had cancer, so I was 21, and the key, I got diagnosed, my friends.
And you had what? You had?
It was lymphoma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I had tumors in my sinuses up near my brain. So I went in because I had these. I went to Washington, D.C. to do Capitol Hill program where you work for the government. I worked for I was an environmental science major in college. I worked for the Environmental Protection Agency during Bush 1. And there I just had this weird sinus. It was a weird mucus in my sinuses. I thought it was just allergies or whatever. But then I started bleeding out of my nose the summer afterwards. So it was going into my junior year of college, and then the bleeding got really bad. I was bleeding constantly out of my sinuses, a liter of blood a day. It was crazy. So they looked and they found what they thought were polyps. I went in to have the polyps removed, and my friends came to the hospital high and thinking they're going to fuck with me because I'm in my hospital bed and all that stuff. And my mom comes out and she's crying and she's like, it's cancer. And they were all baked, and they're oh,
Beef isn't butthead.
Yeah, seriously. So so the chemotherapy was gnarly. I lost like 25 pounds in like a month. Had a headache for 8 days because they had to inject it into my spinal cord, and I had spinal taps all the time. So I had a splitting headache for like 8 days. Couldn't eat. It was killing me. So I started like looking with my dad, actually researching herbs to help me deal with the side effects of chemo, to help me get through it. And it was helpful for sure, but then it came into my mind that maybe I should, because the chemo was definitely like, even though I was taking the herbs, it was killing me. I could feel it. And I was like, I think maybe I should stop doing the chemotherapy and just do like the herbs. And I was writing formulas, either Ayurvedic herbs, Western herbs, some Chinese herbs, like just research, because there's no internet. This is 89. So it's just books and going to the health food store, to their herb jars and getting, these, weird plants. And so went off chemo, and that like for about a month and a half. And I felt way better. I was putting weight on. My headaches went away. I was starting to feel really good, but I could tell the cancer was growing. I could feel it. So I'm like, I got to go back to doing chemo. Now, my mom, by this point, when I went off chemo, my mom shut down because my brother just died a couple years earlier. My mom is thinking, I'm going to die. So she is like separated
I can't take
from
two,
her.
yeah.
Nah, she couldn't take it. And so that happened, and so I feel the cancer is still kind of like there, I could tell. So I decided to go. My dad was fully against chemo. So when I told my dad I was going to go back to doing chemo, my dad flipped out. So my mom shut down. My dad flipped out. He was at Rob's house. He's like, I remember when I told him I had this really bad headache, splitting headache. I was at Rob's because I had stopped going to either of my parents' house. When I'd come down from UCSB to get treatment, normally you'd stay at your parents' house, but I couldn't deal with them, so I just stayed at friends' houses or whatever. And he was at Rob's. He was screaming at me, "You're killing yourself!" And it was just so gnarly. It was so gnarly. And we got into a fist fight because he thought I was at my mom's, and he's like, "You meet me in the park." He wanted to fight. And we got into a fist fight because he was so against me doing chemotherapy that I think fighting me was his way of fighting. Like if he won the fight with me, he would win the argument and I would stop doing chemotherapy or something. It was crazy. But anyway, went back to doing chemo, but kept doing the herbs, and it really helped. But in the meantime, I started writing herbal formulas for my friends when they would get sick. They started calling me Dr. Lerbo. That was like my nickname.
I love that.
Yeah. It's still my email address.
It still is.
And so I'd write herbal formulas for my friends, but I also got certified as a massage therapist when I was in college. It was like a college job because I was good at it. And
you are good at it, Larry has the strongest hands. Like he can take your back, and he's done a lot of work on me. He takes you get in there, bro.
Yeah, I like to get in there.
It's good.
I like to get in there. So anyway,
and you love popping pimples.
It's fun.
You love popping.
My mom kind of got me into that. I don't know. Like I'll have acupuncture patients on the table, and they'll be laying down, and I see blackheads, and I'm like,
oh, you love it.
I don't always. You have to pick your person.
I mean, that one on my back, that thing that I had, that I finally got taken off.
Yeah,
you would love that thing. You would stick needles in it and all kinds of shit.
It's very satisfying. Yeah, I second career maybe in the next life. But anyway, so yeah, that was like in the background. But then after college, I did the CD-ROM business. So totally unrelated. I didn't know anything about acupuncture. I had no idea about acupuncture, Chinese medicine, no idea. I'd never had an acupuncture treatment. But Megan had an acupuncturist. This is afterwards. She's like, you should see my acupuncturist. Now, at the time, I was still doing massage. I was still doing herbs. I went into this woman's practice. And, I mean, yeah. So it did, even though I didn't know it at the time. So after we sold our company, having all that stuff in my background, being a cancer survivor, being a self-taught herbalist, still doing body work on people as like a side job. I just like doing it. I was doing web development in the midst of all that, and I got my first acupuncture treatment from this woman that my ex Megan referred me to, and I came out of the experience like I didn't have any particular reason to have the acupuncture at the time. I'm like, I'll try it. I got nothing wrong with me, but sure. And I came out of it going, that was interesting, but I think for the money I'd rather get a massage. Like, it feels better. But then I went to bed
What
that
type of
night.
massage?
Only the straight kind, Billy. Only the straight kind. That's yeah.
Kiss Kitty, Lisa.
So I went to bed that night, and I woke up the next morning, and I was like, whoa. Like, I felt like something had shifted, and I didn't even know what it was, but I felt so realigned is how I felt energetically. And I'm not like a woo-woo person. I like need to feel stuff to feel it. And I was like, that's really interesting. And then it all, like, we had sold our company, so I'm like, what am I, I wasn't sure what I was going to do next. What was my next, move going to be? What was my next chapter? And I was like, this is interesting to me. I could do this. I feel like I'm already good at it. Like, I understand the body. I know how to work with it. I'm already doing herbs, and I'm like, I'm going to go to Chinese medical school. I think I'd be really good at this. And I found a school that I really liked called Yosan University here in LA.
How long is that?
4 years, postgraduate.
Oh,
yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's a master's program. Yeah, it's not like you do a little thing.
Yeah.
It's like, because you have to get totally brainwashed out of a Western medical way of thinking, and a totally different like paradigm for how disease works, and the way, what's the outside world, what's the inside world. Is there a difference? In Chinese medicine, it's like there's no real difference. Like, so anyway, it was fascinating, and I was like, and I just took to it like a fish to water. I love it.
I'll say that whenever something's going on in my house with the kids or me or Nicole, I always think about calling you first. I'm like, call Larry. He can help us.
And when I can't, you got Lisa, because she's an ER
then
doctor.
I go to Lisa.
Yeah.
We have a one-stop shop.
Yeah, totally.
And so you practice here.
Yep. 25 years this year. My practice is in near Marina Del Rey.
And what's the name of it? What's the
Venice Acupuncture, veniceacupuncture.com.
Okay.
Yep.
So everyone, veniceacupuncture.com. I have tons of friends that have gone to you. I've gone to you. My wife's gone to you. You're very good at what you do.
Yeah.
So anyone
Thank
needs
you, Billy.
and anyone needs a little needle, go to Learbo.
Yeah.
And then you also have a CBD company.
Yes. So Hick, who we mentioned before, to tell the story, I'll try to fast forward, but when I was in Chinese medical school, my friends and I went to this Tai Chi. It was like a Taoist yoga class with this crazy guy. And we were doing all this wild stuff in the class. It was like a 3-hour thing. And part of it involved like doing something called tapping, where you stand across from a partner and you kind of swing your arms. You're like swinging your arms and banging your arms into their arm. So it's like banging your bones against their bones. It's called tapping. And I guess it's like a bone hardening technique for martial artists or something. And you do it after a while, it like hurts. And he had this stuff in like a wine bottle with like a little a spout on the end of it, and it had this brown liquid in it, and it was called, I didn't know what it was, but it was called Dit Da Jiao, which is like, it translates to hit, like physical hits, like injuries, hit wine medicine, because the herbs that are in it was a bunch of Chinese herbs soaked in alcohol for a long period of time. Then you strain it off, and this combination of herbs relieves pain. And I had never seen it before. So he said, the teacher said, pour it onto your arms and rub it in there, and it'll make the pain go away. So we did that, and it was like, oh my God, that stuff really works. So anyway, I worked in an herb store towards the end of and managed this herb store called Herb King, and we had our own version of this Dit Da Jiao that the founder of Herb King, Frederick Obi is his name, he was a kung fu master. His master gave him a recipe, and we would, we had big buckets of herbs soaking in alcohol in the back of the store, and then we would strain it off and we'd sell it to people, and they would, drip it onto their injuries. Anyway, so when I started my acupuncture practice, like I had Dit Dot Jiao from Herb King, and that was what I used. If somebody came with pain, besides doing needles, I would put Dit Dot Jiao on them, rub it into them. It wasn't perfect because it didn't it absorbed really fast. It got a little bit sticky. It wasn't perfect, but I mean, it worked really well. The application wasn't great. And then in 2019, I had the 2018 Farm Bill legalized hemp products.
Yep.
And had been hearing about CBD for a while, even before that. Like THC, I was already a big fan of, but CBD had heard of, but hadn't played with it at all. But it became available, and so I had been thinking to myself, like, I would like to incorporate CBD with this Dit Dot Jiao, but how to do it? And start thinking about creating a topical to put all this stuff together to create a better way of applying these herbs to people's injuries. I also do a lot of cupping and do a lot of like scraping and stuff like that for injuries. And so I came up with this formula, and at the same time, Hick, who we talked about earlier, wanted to do something in the CBD space at the very beginning, 2019. And it was like, well, it's funny you mentioned that, because I've been working on like a balm, and
I've used it plenty of times.
yeah, so it took a lot of iterations, but I finally nailed the recipe, and it's called Hitbalm. Hit based on the translation of Dit Dot Jiao, these hit herbs, So anyway, Hitbalm has been around for 6 years, and it's, I mean, what can I say? Like a lot of people believe in their products, but Hitbalm is an incredible product. It's better than the other, products like it on the market, mostly because it's also imbued with all these Chinese herbs. But also, I know a lot about herbs, and was able to come up with something that's not just about the CBD. It's about the synergy of all these ingredients. It's a better product than it is a business. The CBD business is a very hard business.
Yeah,
it's totally saturated. Marketing
commoditized across the board. You can buy it everywhere. You go to
Right.
CVS and they have stuff
Right.
that's just crap. Or
It's just an ingredient.
Or
Anybody-
there's stuff
yeah.
on TV that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a company that spend, $500,000 a week, and it's not even that. It's like it's just branding. It's not even.
Yep. Yeah, and like most companies in this space spend $1 to make 90 cents, and hope that you reach some critical mass that it becomes profitable. But it's like, it's a hard business, but it's a great product, and we've been around for 6 years. We're doing okay, but it's a great product. I love doing it. I love seeing patients and making people feel better. I think part of the other part of me, I think that why what I'm doing, how it ties to the rest of my life, is a lot of people who grow up in addictive households, like some of them end up being sort of like, what they call like codependents.
Yep.
Like they do stuff to accommodate everybody else. Like I just want I want everyone to feel better. Dad, I want to do whatever I can to make you feel better, for you, but for me too,
because then I don't have
it
to deal with
protects
it.
me
Yeah.
from that. So that part of me that's always about like wanting my parents to feel better became sort of, a healthy, like me doing it professionally is a healthy expression of that, urge, that
trait.
need to make people feel better. So like Hitbalm allows me to help people feel better that I don't get to see. I mean, we've a couple 100,000 customers around the country get to feel better, and getting reviews saying this stuff is incredible. It's helped me so much with my pain. That makes me feel so good that to have that outsized impact. So anyway,
And what else do you sell there? You sell sleep gummies?
Yeah, we make gummies. that are made with like fresh fruit purees and not like typical, like artificially flavored, like with real fruit that we harvest and cook down into puree, like really good gummies and oil too. But really the hero product is the balm and the other products, because if topicals are hard, like the gummy business is like really, it's really hard to stand out. So they end up being like a value add for people coming onto the website to buy the balm. We offer these other things. They happen to be really good. I make everything. So
that's a very important piece there, guys. So you're listening to the person that came up with it, developed it, he makes it, he's a real person. It's made in the US, it's made actually in Los Angeles, and you just heard a story. Like we're not hiding from anything we've done or been, but you can tell that Larry is a very genuine person and he's smart as fuck. So if you're having any pain,
but yeah.
Larry, you're very smart.
Thanks.
You are. And so if you're having any pain, Hitbalm.com.
Yep, hitbalm.com. Yep.
You can find his products.
Thank you, Billy. Thanks for the little plug.
Of course, Larry.
Yeah.
I'm here to plug you.
Thanks.
I don't think I have any more questions, Larry. I can't even read this thing. I don't even need this. Larry, again, I love you, and I am very fortunate to have you in my life.
Thanks, Billy. I feel the same way about you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It does sadden me a little bit that I acted like that when I was boozing, but I knew it.
No, that's why you're not doing it. Because you know.
Yeah.
You know the best version of you is not a drunk you.
Yeah. I do not want to be a drunk, slurring, sloppy person.
No, you want to be
present.
You want to be present. You want your consciousness heightened, not dulled.
Yeah. And I think it's a good example for our kids.
Yeah. Be there more for your kids. See them more clearly.
Yeah. And they can see me more clearly.
Yeah. They're not going to leave their childhoods remembering their dad as like some guy who's volatile and drinking.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
Present.
So again, thank you for coming on, Larry.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
This has been a lot of fun, and I have a few gifts for you.
Thank you.
What
do you got?
This is for your lovely wife.
All right.
I think that's the size she wanted. I'll check.
I think she wants extra large. She likes extra large.
Okay,
things.
so I'll get it. I have some more.
Beautiful.
And then I have a hat for her.
Thank you.
And then I have a black hat for you.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
That looks good on you, my friend. And then I have
awesome. Love it.
Hoodie for you.
Thank you. Very cool.
Thank you for tuning in. Again, you can follow us on all socials at We Are LA Sober. You can find the podcast currently only on YouTube, just LA Sober. And then for any products or merch that you want to get, you can check out lasober.com. So see you next time.
It's awesome.
That's good.
Dude, it's cool that you got your little studio. Wait, so it's not